What's up, Gold Creek? My name is Tyler, and we are out here in Skydive Snohomish, and we are starting off a new series called Full Send. We are sending members of our congregation up in a plane to jump out and to parachute down. What's more full send than that? I couldn't tell you. Let's get into it. So first off, what's your name and what campus are you from?
Cassie, and I'm from Mill Creek.
Have you ever gone skydiving before?
I have, about 2 years ago, I think.
What led you to decide to do it again?
It's so crazy that I had to do it again. And when they announced it, I just stopped listening. I didn't even know what it was for. I was just on my phone on it.
How was that?
So amazing!
Welcome back to skydiving. Look at this view. Incredible.
Amazing view.
Congratulations. Boom. Woo!
Hey, good morning, everyone. Glad you guys are here. This is week 3, Full Send. Does that video make you want to go skydiving? Most of you say no. You would be probably considered the sane people in this room. I myself would love to do it again, but I'm not allowed to anymore, so it is what it is. Maybe one day when my kids are all grown up, my wife will have a change of heart. But we are finishing our series on Full Send, and next week we're starting a brand new series called Forge the Future, and this week we're just kind of wrapping things up. And as we talk about it, we're going to talk about finding your purpose and your people. And the reason we're doing this is because we believe that community is valuable, that it's important, and when we find people to live life with, it just enriches so much more. So I'm going to recap real fast. Week 1, we talked about how to reignite our purpose, things that we can do to reignite our faith, our calling, our purpose, all that fun stuff. The second was, what is the enemy of purpose, the things that take away from it. And so today, again, we're focusing on finding your people. Before we do, I want to ask you, have you ever heard the term self-made? You ever heard that term? Like self-made millionaire, or I'm a self-made business owner, or whatever it is. We've probably all heard that term, but I want to share with you the myth of the self-made person. There was this huge study done about the concept of self-made. Is that even possible? Can someone from nothing create something by themselves? Because that's the definition of self-made, an individual solely responsible for their own success. Through this study, they did case study after case study, all the corporations that grew, all the companies that grew, all the millionaires, billionaires that they interviewed. There was not one person within this group, and it was thousands of case studies. Not like, oh, we interviewed Bill Gates, oh, it didn't work. They interviewed thousands of people, looked at all these different studies, and they found that this is in fact not true, that the idea of being self-made is not possible. Because you may experience individual success and accolades, but to get to the level that they saw in the studies that they found, you have to have good people around you. You have to have the right team. And I thought about this. Everyone needs a team of people. We all do. Every single person in this room, whether it's professionally, spiritually, or relationally, we need people that are cheering us on. We need people that are encouraging us. We need people that say, you are not being a good person right now. We need all of those people. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But before we do, it's almost the end of baseball season. If you didn't know that, now you know. There's only a few weeks left. I think the last games are next weekend, and then it's on to the playoffs, possibly, if they don't keep losing all of these games. But if I were to show you a picture of the Mariners, which I'm going to right now, these are some of our Mariners. These are what we would consider the brightest stars of the Mariners team. And if I ask you the question, who is the best player on the Mariners, the greatest player on the Mariners, I don't know that there'd be a whole lot of people that would argue that it's not Julio Rodriguez. He's the one getting the big contract. He's the one putting up the numbers. He's been exciting since he joined the roster. This is the face of the Seattle Mariners. And as I keep talking about the myth of the self-made person, as great as he is as a ball player, could he win a World Series by himself? No, I don't think so. Could he win the playoffs by himself? I don't think so. Could he win a game by himself? Maybe. But even then, when you really think about it, if the pitcher gives up 84 runs, I don't think he could still come out and win that game somehow. It takes a team to do this. So when I say the myth of the self-made person, there's a reason why success is mostly achieved in a group or a team dynamic. Because you share the greatness, you share the burdens, you share the good, you share the bad, and it creates community and buy-in. Julio Rodriguez is not going to achieve greatness by himself. He's just not. He needs his team. He needs his coaches. Everyone needs to come together. He may get the individual records. Let's say he breaks every individual record, but he never wins a World Series or never even makes the playoffs. All the stat heads and all the historians will say he was a great individual player. But he needs his team if he wants to get to the next level. So here's the bottom line of today's sermon. It is impossible to truly live out your purpose without people. It is impossible to truly live out your purpose without people. Another way of saying this is you were designed by God to fulfill your purpose in community with others. Now, some might object and say, well, my purpose is private or my faith is private. And if you're not a Jesus follower, absolutely, I totally understand that statement. But for those that say that Jesus Christ is the person that I'm following, he's my guy, he's the one that I think this is who I want to pattern my life after. When we are those people, the Jesus followers, our purpose is or may be personal to you, but it is not private. It is the second thing that Jesus told us to do before he went and he ascended into heaven. He said, go into the world and tell others about me and then make disciples. That means that we are not being private with what Jesus did in our lives. That's what those verses mean. And community is the context for discipleship. Did you know biblically we're not created to be independent, but in fact we were created to be interdependent? By God's design, we cannot reach our God-given potential without other people. I'm going to go back to the first book of the Bible. This is Genesis, and I'm only going to do it very briefly. But God created the earth, and he makes this perfect creation, and then he makes the only modification to that. And that modification is this. He said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him. God placed Adam in the middle of the garden. His design was, I'm going to spend daily walks with you. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to love you. I'm going to support you. I want you to cultivate the land. I want you to name all the animals. This is what we're going to do. But you know what? You can't do this alone. You need someone with you. And he creates Eve. Going back to Julio Rodriguez, we know he's good. He could be great. He's still young, but he needs his team. And through this whole series, we've been looking at one particular king in the Old Testament. It's King David. He's known as the greatest king of that time. There's no king that has been greater than David as far as not only what he's accomplished, but how he did it and how he was connected to God. Solomon made more money. He was the wisest king in the world, and he expanded the kingdom bigger than David did, but he did not follow God the way that David did. And that's why David is considered the best king. He's the prototype of what a great king looks like. Between his defeat of Goliath and conquering his enemies, to the expansion of what he did, to setting up Jerusalem as the city capital, to the prep work that he did before the temple was built, those are all things that he did, just a few of the things that he did. But how did he do it? Did he accomplish any of these things by himself? The answer is no. He did it first with a clear purpose from God, but then secondly, he had incredible people around him that helped him achieve that purpose. So let's start with his purpose. With David, it says in verse 22 of Acts 13, I love that this is the New Testament, 2,000 years later, reflecting on this, or not 2,000, just a few hundred years later, reflecting on what David did. And it says right here, after removing Saul, he made David their king. God testified concerning him, I have found David, son of Jesse, a man after my own heart. He will do everything that I want him to do. Now, we know that David's not perfect. That was from last week, and I'll touch on that again in a second. But I believe that David's purpose is also our purpose. Right here, the key verse is, I have found a man after my own heart. If we align our hearts with what God says and we let him direct us, I'm telling you, he's going to do some really cool stuff through you. Really cool stuff. So let's take a look at a bunch of different stories from David's life. I didn't pick one person that impacted his life. I just took his entire life because I think there are individuals that really kind of brought him to where he is. But I want to point out a couple different people that will help you reach your potential when it comes to fulfilling your purpose. The person number one is, first of all, someone who sees your potential. I think that's the big one. Again, if we go all the way back to David, his first day, he was not even chosen by his own father as a possible candidate for this. When God told Samuel, you're going to anoint a new king, I want you to go to Jesse's house. There he has some sons. I'll tell you which one when you get there. Samuel shows up, and his dad, not Samuel's dad, David's dad parades all of his brothers in front of him, and David was not one of them. And then we continue that in verse 10. It says, Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to him, the Lord has not chosen these. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons that you have? Jesse's reply is, there is still the youngest. He answered, he is tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives. So he sent for him and had him brought in. Verse 12, he was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. Why was he the one? I just read the verse. His heart. His own father did not recognize his potential. We all need someone to see our potential of what we can accomplish when we align ourselves with what God is doing. God was very clear. He says, you guys are looking at the physical appearances. I'm telling you right now, that is not as important as what's inside. And he calls out these people, and it's just, it's crazy because I think about this. David has never done anything great before this moment. He's a shepherd. He's the youngest of his brothers. He's out in the fields. He's writing songs and hugging sheep. That is not what we would consider great, you know? We wouldn't be like, oh, great man once hugged a sheep and wrote a song about it. Like, that's weird. Obviously, you know, this is a different context. But for the most part, to fulfill your purpose, you need someone in your life that believes in you and calls out that potential. Now, for the records, there's one person that does not count, and that's your mom. Okay, if your mom says, you're going to be the best, that's awesome, she loves you, you could murder someone and she'd be like, oh, he didn't mean it, he was just playing. Like, she will believe in you. She will not ever not believe in you. That's just a mom heart. You know, they're the ones that will always comfort no matter how knuckleheaded moves we make. Moms are like, oh, you'll just learn from it. And they'll hug you and give you a cookie and whatever, you know, that's the mom spirit. So if your mom's like, I believe in your potential, that's awesome. But that doesn't count in this particular point, okay? That one's just like the icing on the cake. But for me, going through college, I was kind of I don't want to say a troublemaker. Like, I never did anything crazy. Like, I didn't like set fire to the building or start fights or stab people or anything like that. I was kind of a prankster, and I was very good at organizing pranks all over the university. And I did it in such a way so that I always had an alibi, you know, because, you know, and we're doing all these things. And this faculty, man, it used to drive them nuts because they knew it was me, but they couldn't prove it was me. And they would always be like, James, can you stop doing this? I'm like, stop doing what? And like, come on, man, come on. You know, and you just kind of do that. And I would never be at the top of the list or even in the top probably 100 people if someone came to the school and said, can you just bring in this room your top students, the people that you're like, man, this person represents our university. I would never be in that room. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd be the one shutting the doors and gluing them shut. Like, that would be me. And I remember that I started kind of getting that reputation like he's a little prankster. And there was a campus, he was the campus pastor at the time. I know it's different than me, campus pastor, like this is university campus pastor. And his name was Moses. And so he already has Bible cred because his name is Moses. I mean, come on, right? Like if he just showed up with a couple tablets, I'd be like, I'm in. But his name was Moses, and he was an Indian guy, which was hilarious because I'm like, your parents named you, and they're from India. He's like, yeah. I was like, where'd Moses come from? He's like, I don't know. And so he saw in me potential. But he wouldn't just grab me and be like, you have so much potential. What are you doing with your life? Why are you doing this? You're driving the faculty and the staff nuts. You're alienating other students that you're, whatever. And so he never did any of those kinds of things. Instead, what he would do is I would sit in the cafeteria and he would sit next to me. I mean, he would ask first. He didn't just like sit next to me. He would, hey, can I sit with you guys? Absolutely. And he would sit and he would just ask questions about life. Like, what do you do here? Why do you do this? What's your hobby? What do you love doing? What makes you laugh? What makes you sad? And he would ask these follow-up questions. And he was just kind of getting to know us. And every once in a while, he would ask a deeper question. He'd be like, what do you think God wants you to be known for? I'm like, that's a great question. And he would ask all of these. And again, he never really called me out. He never really pointed a finger and said, you know what, you're such a knucklehead. Why are you doing these dumb things? He never said that, even though one time I took his entire office and I set it up on the roof of the building. He still never got mad at me or yelled at me, which let me tell you, that was an amazing prank. I'm not going to lie. Like we set it up exactly the way he had it in his office. And I remember his reaction. He's like, you guys, all right, who's going to help me bring this all back down? And we all helped him bring it back down. But he didn't get mad. And I remember the turning point for me one time. We had all these conversations, and he always just kind of treated me with that kind of, I think you can do more. I think you can do more. And one of the things he said was, as we were talking through all the stuff that I was going through, and he says, James, let me ask you a question. What if you let God use your abilities? What if he let you use your abilities and your mind for his purpose rather than serving your own interests? And I was like, wow. As a 20-year-old kid, man, that was deep. I was like, huh. Essentially, what he's saying is, what if you use your powers for good instead of for evil, right? That's the comic book way of saying it. But he said it in a spiritual way. What if you let God use your abilities and your talent and your mind for processing things for his will and the things that he can accomplish versus getting a laugh or doing things your way? What if that happened? What could God do? And it set off a chain of events for me. From there, I started doing student ministries on campus, and it just kind of set off this chain of events to who I am today, of being even a pastor here today. He's one of the building blocks for me saying yes to the calling to be a pastor. Why can't we be the person who sees the potential in others and calls it out? Because you never know the lives that you can impact with encouraging words like that. Person number 2, someone to stick by your side no matter what. This is a hard season for David. I'm going to kind of set up this verse. Very, very hard season for David. He's anointed king. He slayed Goliath. He's promised one of the daughters to Saul, so he's going to marry into the royal family. He's famous. He's got songs written about him. All this stuff is going great. But then right at this, Saul gets massively jealous and tries to kill him numerous times. Tried to create a David shish kebab with spears, like over and over again. So David was running, he was scared, and he's trying to navigate this incredibly hard season because he wanted to honor God, and he had so many opportunities to take Saul's life, and he would not do it because he wanted to honor God. And there was one person that stuck with him through this whole thing, and his name is Jonathan, the son of Saul. So this is where we're going to pick up Samuel 19, verse 1. Saul told his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David. Now he's enlisting help. He's not just satisfied him doing it himself. Hey, you guys help me kill this guy. But Jonathan had taken a great liking to David and warned him, my father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard tomorrow morning. Go into hiding and stay there. And then it continues in verse 3, and I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are. I'll speak to him about you, and I will tell you what I find out. Verse 4, Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father. And then he goes on to list all of his accomplishments in front of his dad. He has served you. He's never betrayed you. He's always given you the authority, always given you the glory, etc., except for God. And he lists all these things out. And at the end of it, Saul's like, you're right. He's a good guy. I'm sorry. But you need people to stick by your side no matter what. And Jonathan, the crazy part, he's next in line. He's going to be the next king if things go well. He doesn't technically know that David's anointed. That's the crazy thing. But instead of letting jealousy overcome his heart, instead of letting the success of David bring a wedge between him and his friend, he helps David live out his calling. That's what he does. Years ago, myself and a friend of mine were up for the same position at a church. It was a pastoral position, and we were both up for it. He was a few years older, had been serving longer, had a little more experience. He was a better communicator from the stage, and so I thought he was going to get it. Like I was like, oh, he's going to get it. Like everyone likes him. I need to interview because God's telling me. And so I go through this process, and it really wasn't really an interview process more than it was just a lunch. But after the lunch, the pastor that was hiring, he just looks at me and says, hey, you're my guy. I'm going to hire you. And I remember immediately thinking, oh, sweet, I'm in the ministry. But then I started thinking about my friend. No, it really is great. At the time, I was freaked out, but it really is great. And my friend, I just kept thinking about him like, oh, no, he's going to have to get that rejection phone call, letter, email, text, skywriting, whatever, Hopefully they don't make me do it. That would be awkward. Your first act is to tell him you didn't get the job. I'm like, no, I quit, But I remember when I did finally see him, I was really anxious about it because, he's a friend of mine and we're going for the same thing. And, both of us couldn't get it. So it's like, it's awkward. You weren't picked. Sorry, bud. And I remember getting a little anxious, and I knew that I was going to see him on Sunday, and I go to church, and they're announcing me to the church, and I go, and I know he was going to be there at least at one of the services, and so I show up, and sure enough, I see him there first service, and I'm like, oh, what's he going to say? And he walks up to me, he walks straight up to me, and with purpose, too. So I'm like, ooh, man, my first fight as a pastor, yeah. And so, no, I didn't do that. And he's coming up to me, and he comes up, and he just hugs me, and he's like, oh, I really wanted that job. I was like, I'm sorry, man. He's like, I really wanted it. I thought I got it. I thought that was me, man. I was so disappointed. And I was like, I'm sorry, dude. What do I do? What do you do, right? Go get him next time? I don't, And I just, I was like, I don't, okay, sorry, man. Jesus has got something for you one day, and I'm just trying to be encouraging, but I didn't quite know what to do at that point. And then he just stops and he goes, as much as I wanted it, James, I just want you to know I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader. If you need anything, you let me know. If you need to volunteer, I'm going to be the first volunteer. I'm going to help you set up and clean up. If you're going to do some sort of event, you let me know. I'm going to be your guy. And I remember standing there thinking, okay, he just shared how disappointed he was. He was really disappointed. You could see it on his face. And then all of a sudden he wants to be my cheerleader. And, the skeptic side of me is like, what's the angle that this guy's pulling? Is he going to try to stab me in the back when I'm not paying attention? I'm onto your ways. So I was a little skeptical at first. But every week he kept walking that talk. He would prove to me that he was on board with me. He would volunteer for everything. He was the first to speak and say, hey, James is doing this, or hey, we're going to do this together, or we're going to support him. He was the first to do all of it. And over the course of weeks and then months, I began to see that this wasn't just some weird thing he's doing to try to get my guard down. He really believed in me. And as disappointed as he was, as jealous as he probably was in this moment that I got the job that he didn't, he wasn't going to let that affect how he was going to serve God, how he's going to serve me, how he believes in me. And he cheerleaded for me. No matter what. We need people that will stick by our sides. That kind of behavior is not normal, but imagine if it was. They make a mistake and you stick by them. They say something that is just awful and you go, man, they must be having a bad day, versus they have the spawn of Satan in them. You know, like what if we just changed our mentality a little bit and we started to let God determine our heart's actions, and we let our hearts beat with his, and God looks at us and says, you know what, David is a man after my own heart, but you guys are too. What could we do for God if that's how we acted towards others? Person number 3, someone to call you out. This one's a fun one, right? We love that. But David is famous for a lot of things, but he's also famous for doing one really bad thing. He committed adultery with Bathsheba, got her pregnant, and then covered it up by murdering her husband. That's pretty bad. So God uses a prophet by the name of Nathan to find him and call him out. And Nathan shows up, but he doesn't just go, David, you did this terrible thing. He actually tells him a story about 2 men, one rich, one poor. And the rich man had an entire flock of sheep. He had so much in abundance. And this poor man had only 1 sheep. And he loved it so much that the Bible says that he would eat from his table and that he slept in his bed. So it was like a weird sheep child of some sort. And he just loved this sheep so much. And this rich man decided, I'm going to have this dinner. I'm not going to kill my own. I'm going to take this guy's because, well, I don't want to use my resources. And he steals this 1 sheep and cooks it and eats it. David hears the story and he is enraged. Oh, death to this man. How could he? How dare he? And then Nathan says, guess what? It's a metaphor. Gotcha. You're the rich man. Which is where we pick up in verse 7. Then Nathan said to David, why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the swords of the Ammonites. We need people to call us out when we're doing dumb stuff. If you're trying to fulfill your purpose, you can't just have people around you that are always constantly telling you how great you are. You got to have people in your life that says, hey, are you sure that this is where you want to be, or who you want to be, or how you're going to speak? We need that. We need people to call the junk out in our lives other than our spouses. Spices. I can never say the plural of that. They're great resources well too, but you guys know. It's always that voice outside. You know, it's like when I tell my kids not to do something and then someone that's not related to them says to do the same thing. They're like, yeah, I should do that. You're like, well, I just said that 19 times. But that's a different sermon, different story, right? But we need those kinds of people. For me, I've had many different Nathan-like people in my life that have come to me and have called out different behaviors or the way that I think or the things that I'm not doing. I've had a lot of people in my life that have had coffees with me, that have had dinners with me, that have come to see me or visited me or whatever it is. And I think you don't realize it at the time, but these are people that God are sending to help you with this process. There was one time in particular, it was not too long ago, I was having coffee with another pastor. And we have small talk, right? You just kind of talk about things like weather, like, wow, crazy weather, it rained today. No, it's not that crazy. We live in Washington. Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about sports. Yay, sports ball, and you just just shooting the breeze for a second. And then all of a sudden, he just kind of stops and goes, James, are you okay? With what? Like, where's the rest of the sentence? He said, no, I've just noticed. There's a slowness to your step. There's not quite that urgency and pep in your step that there normally is. And I'm like, I have a peppy step? I didn't realize that I was such a peppy walker, He said, it's a metaphor. I don't think literally your gait, just the way that you approach things, your grinded mentality kind of seems like you're coming to a slow halt. Like, what's going on? So I had to think about this for a second because I wasn't ready for this conversation. It wasn't like I knew that I was going to have this conversation. So I'm sitting there and he's like, you gonna answer? I'm like, I need a second, man. I didn't realize you're gonna do this. She's like, oh, sorry. And so I'm processing, and I'm just I have to stand up because I'm a pacer. I don't know if you guys are. When I preach, practice preach in my office, I'm usually doing this as well too. And I'm pacing, and I'm like, okay, so I'm pepping the step. The guitar is this guy talking about? Am I slow? Is it different? What's going on? And then he says, well, no, I want to know about your heart. I'm like, why are you adding more stuff? You're making me more confused. Like, what's going on right now? And I just keep kind of going through this, and all of a sudden it just kind of light bulb moment clicks, and I'm like, oh, I've been carrying resentment and bitterness in my heart. So in that moment I was like, you know what, honestly, I never really processed this, but I've been carrying some resentment in my heart for the last few years. I said, we've been through a tough stretch as a church where we bounced around to 8 different locations in 2 years, and we're trying to gain traction, and I keep going, God, what the tar are you doing right now? Like, what's this all about? And I'm, why God attitude is in my heart, and I'm getting more and more bitter, and, oh, great, sweet, you got a new building, awesome for you, and you just kind of, that bitterness just starts to creep in, and I never really dealt with it and did the process. And so I'm like, man, you're right. I wasn't really following God with my whole heart. I was following him with just enough of my heart. Just enough, just hit the bare minimum so that I'm not disqualified. But I wasn't following him the way that David follows him. And going through that and processing through that with him, I made a change that day, which allowed my heart to continue to remove that bitterness and that resentment and all those other things, and start filling it with the Spirit of God and with the compassion of Jesus and all the things that I need so that I can follow God with more of my heart. And I started making that move. The truth is, no one likes to be called out. None of us like to be called out. But those that want to reach their God-given potential know the importance of it, know the importance of having good coaching in your life that says, let's adjust this, let's stop this, let's tweak this, let's fix this. Those people are valuable. Because no one in this room or watching online is perfect. None of us. So we need those people to help us course correct. The last person is a person to go to battle with. David was known as a mighty warrior. If you guys didn't know that, he killed lots of people. He was a great, not like just, he's like mass murderer. Like he was a general, and he was a captain, and he did all these things, and he was in lots of wars, and he won them all. But he did not fight alone. He did not fight alone. He had an army with him. And in verse 8 of chapter 23, I know this is like the shortest verse, and it seems so strange to put this here, but it says, these are the names of David's mighty warriors. And then I stopped because it was like 15 verses. I'm like, we're going to read forever. He had a ton of men that went to battle with him. That said, David is the guy that I'm going to follow, that I will lay down my life for him if I need be. And he had all of these men that would do these incredible things for him. One time, they went and got him a jug of water because he missed the flavor of that water. They broke through enemy lines with a jar that was empty to go to a well to get water and bring it back. That's how they viewed David. They loved him so much that they were willing to go to battle with him for water. Who are these men and women in your life that will go to war alongside of you? If we were to take the spiritual element out of it, if you're a business owner, it might be your employees or your management staff, or maybe it's your boss if you don't own the business. If you're an athlete, it's your teammates and your coaches. If you're a Jesus follower, it's your friends and your church family that spurs you on. For me, you know who I go to battle with? It's you guys. That's who I battle with. I cannot reach Lake Stevens by myself. It takes a team. It takes all of us going together. And I'm not just talking about the staff. I'm not talking about the other pastors or coordinators that are on staff. I'm talking about everyone. Our serve teams, people that give, that tithe, people that encourage, families that come and say, you know what, I believe in this church. I believe that we're going to reach Lake Stevens. I believe that God has a plan for us here in the city, that there's a future for us. These are who we battle, that sees the potential of what God is going to do through us. That is who battle with us. I want to ask you again, who are the people that help you live out your purpose? Who are those people? For me, I had a Connect group that I joined years ago. And that's a great way to find people, by the way. Sometimes it doesn't quite click and you might only connect with one or two people. Sometimes it's the entire group. It's different each time, different circumstances. But this group in particular, it was awesome. There were 6 couples, and out of this one group, so many needs were met just for myself and my own family. While we were in this in this small group, one of the couples let us live with them for like 5 months, 4.5 months, while we found a place of our own. Just let us live there. Like, hey, you stay as long as you want. Another couple, because he knew that we had just moved and neither one of us had jobs, he was a dentist, he owned his own practice. He said, hey, you guys, if you need any dental work, cleanings, anything you want, just come see me. I'll take care of you guys. I won't charge you a dime. And he just offered what he can do. One of the couples took a day off from work to come help me move my stuff out of storage into the moving truck. Just took the day off just so that I didn't have to do this by myself. Another couple, after we left that state and moved back to California, another couple, he owned a business and he gave me a job in California just so that I can get started. It was crazy that all these needs were met from one small group. Now, I'm not saying that this happens every single time, but what I am saying is you won't ever experience those moments if you never put yourself in a position to experience those moments. You will never have those moments where you can say, God met my needs through the people around me, if you don't put people around you. I know it seems rhetorical, but wow, right? So hard to do. Especially if you're an introvert sitting there watching online right now, everything that I say is making you go, no, James, I do not want to talk to strangers. I don't want to talk to people. But I'm telling you, those are how you find those people, by putting yourself out there. So as we close today, the band's going to come back up here. And I want you to think about and really reflect about the people in your life that help you. And if you don't have any people that fit these areas, these 4 criteria that I talked about, if you're like, James, I don't know anyone that fills any of those, well, start asking God right now to help send people and to open your eyes to seeing those people. I'm telling you, every time I pray, God, I need you to send a person to encourage me. God sends people to encourage me. Whenever I pray, God, I need someone with this or I need someone with that. And again, it doesn't happen instantly, but sometimes it does. But I believe that it starts there. And as the band comes back up here, I don't know how many times I'm going to say that. Let's see how many times. Hey, band. There we go. Okay, cool. 3. It's holy. It's the Trinity, so it works out perfect. But we have these people in our life that you're not going to find them unless you take the step of faith to step forward and say, okay, I don't know if I'm going to find my people here, but I'm going to give it a shot. That's how it starts. We have small groups, Connect groups launching here in a few weeks. They are 6 weeks in commitment. That's how we design them. 1, because the holidays are coming, but 2, we know that schedules change a lot, and so we want to give you something that is achievable and doable. So we ask for 6 weeks of commitment. And these groups are families. They're mixed. They're family with kids. They're family that are empty nesters. There's younger folks. There's older folks. There's men. There's women. And we did that on purpose because we believe that creating these Connect groups with different life stages helps speak into the different moments in our life when we need wisdom or we need energy or we need insight that we can't get by ourselves. So we're offering groups. We'd love for you to sign up. There are a different week or different nights of the week. Circle the ones that you're available and we'll go from there. But I encourage you, if you want to find people like this, that will go to battle with you, that will encourage you, that will call you out, that will stick with you, it has to start somewhere. And it always starts with that step of faith. So that is my encouragement to you. If you don't have those people in your life, or if you do and you want more, there's an opportunity. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I am grateful for all that you do. I just pray right now in this moment as we continue to unpack what it means to have people around us that will help us achieve our purpose, to find our heart beating with yours, to find moments where we can encourage each other. God, I just pray right now in this moment that you just spark in us, our heart just starts beating, God, ready to make these experiences. I pray for obedience. I pray for faith steps, and I ask for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
gonna sing till my heart starts changing. Oh, I'm gonna worship till I mean every word. 'Cause the way I feel and the fear I'm facing doesn't change who you are or what you deserve. I give you my worship, you still deserve it. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my soul. I pour out your praise in blessing and breaking. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my soul. You're worthy, God. I'm gonna live like my King is risen. Gonna preach to my soul that you've already won. And even though I can't see it, I'm gonna keep believing that every promise you made is as good as done. I'll give you my worship, you still deserve it. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my song. I pour out your praise in blessing and breaking. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my song. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my song. You're worthy, you're worthy. In the blessing and the pain, you are worthy. Whether you say yes or no, you are worthy. Whether I refuse to say, you are worthy. I never stop singing your praise. I never stop singing your praise. When I finally see your face, I'll cry worthy. When you wipe these tears away, I'll cry worthy. Above every other name, you are worthy. I'll never stop singing your praise. I'll never stop singing your praise. No, I'll never stop singing your praise. I'll never stop singing your praise. I give you my worship, 'cause you still deserve it. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my soul. I pour out your praise in blessing and breaking. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my song. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my song. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy of my song. You're worthy, you're worthy, forever you're worthy of my song. You're worthy, you're worthy. I finally see your face, I cry worthy. When you wipe these tears away, I'll cry worthy. Above every other name, you are worthy. I never stop singing your praise. I never stop singing your praise. Yeah. Lord, I'll never stop. We will never stop singing how great you are. Father, be with us this week. May we take these words and apply them to our lives, Lord. be with us as we go. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, God bless you all. We hope you have an amazing week. We will see you all next week. God bless.